This week's episode is all about shaping and finishing your flotation foam. Last week we poured foam in this boat and we did a really nice job here, but we got a few irregularities that we need to trim down and shave down. Now I have found in my experience this big Makita or something like it, that's the 9237C variable speed with some 40 grit paper on a Velcro pad. Works great. We got a handful of other tools that work really good for shaping this. I'm going to be sharing that with you as we move through the video. Well, let's jump in. I want to show you how this thing works and what it does and what we're looking for. Does a beautiful job. Now you don't have to have the exact one, but something similar to it. Now prior to that, sometimes you will have some big lumps and bumps. You can see, for example, over there, you can use something like a handsaw to get some of the big material off prior to sanding. And we already did that in some of the areas up front. Now, one of the other items you're going to need or might want to make is a long board. This has got some 40 grit paper on it as well. This will allow you to run across the stringers and get this material level, straight, and true. So in last week's episode, you saw that we used some of the Fiberglass Warehouse A and B two-part polyurethane foam. Had a lot of questions about that too. A lot of people worry about its use in a boat. Is it the right kind of foam? Foams, there's quality differences between foams. Not all foams are the same. It's just like saying all lumber is the same. Marine plywood is going to be different than residential grade plywood. This is a closed cell polyurethane designed for marine applications foam, so it's as good as any you're going to get. Now there are concerns about water getting in the foam, and we're going to be talking about that and addressing that, but that's going to be what you want if you're going to be doing this kind of same job. And today we're going to be using some of the Vinylester resin from Fiberglass Warehouse as well to seal the foam where we've trimmed it, sanded it, and cut it on top. And the thing to remember is when you're doing this kind of work, more than likely, you're going to be doing a better job than a lot of the factory-built boats may have done. They're all about time and money when they're putting these things together. And a lot of times, they don't take all the steps that you might take when you're doing this at home to do a high-quality job. So that was about 28 ounces. We're going to go with about 15 to 20 cc's. We're going to go fairly warm because it is the month of January. It's actually quite mild right now, probably in the 60s right now. We're going to be sealing this foam, maybe help people feel a little better about it. And remember, folks, foam is required here in the US in boats under 22 feet long, and done properly, it can last for years and years trouble-free. Our family has built a number of boats that have foam flotation in them. We've never had any problem with them saturating. It's all about how you install the foam, how you seal the foam after the fact. Now, as you get down in here, it's not uncommon for there to be some voids and little air pockets. That's not the end of the world at all. And again, if you saw how most factory-built boats are put together, this looks quite good compared to a lot of the boats that we see. But sealing these open cut sails with some Vinylester is going to be a good thing. That's what we've always done in the past when we've built boats. And then we're going to come back and we're going to fill some of those voids as well. We've got a custom putty that we can make. And I'm going to show you folks. Be fairly generous. Sometimes it does require more than one coat to seal it. Most factory built boats do not go to this go to this step. You can see how well our little chocks there on the side acted as a guide for our sanding height. And don't expect perfection on this, folks. Sometimes people just really wear themselves out with getting things absolutely perfect as far as the foam height. It does need to be slightly below the level of the tops of the stringers, so you have some clearance there, but some little voids and imperfections are pretty typical. Now, if perfection's your thing and you want to spend the time and effort to shoot for that, by all means, but a lot of times it can take an awful lot of effort to go from plenty good enough to perfection. It's interesting, when you pour the foam and it expands, you may have some areas that are really nice and pure, and in some other areas you may have some bubbles and whatnot. Again, that is quite normal and to be expected, so don't let that ruin your day. Now the thing is, the foam, people will worry about it, and again, we get all kind of comments. It seems to be like a hot topic. Worried about water getting in here. Water has to be in contact with this foam first to have a problem. And if you put the floor in properly so that there's never any water in contact with it, it's impossible for there to be water in the foam. So it's kind of one of those topics, you know, that folks get worked up about. But if you do the install properly, there is no way that water is going to get in there in the first place. If water can't make contact with the foam, then there's no way you have to worry about the soaking of the flotation foam. And it does make the boat a lot stronger. It makes the boat a lot quieter. It adds a lot of rigidity and sound dampening to the hull, and overall it can be a real benefit. Vinylester resin, about 700 milliliters or 24 ounces, 15 or 20 cc's. Kick that off nice and spicy. And we're going to be using some of the dust we collected from actually sanding the floor. I've found that can work really good as a kind of making a lightweight filler for your imperfections, ripples, little holes and whatnot in the bottom. You can see it actually makes a pretty neat little flour or powder there. More or less equal parts, more or less. You may have to play around with the mix a little bit on your own, see what works best for you. There you go. Pretty good looking stuff. Now, if you really wanted to go an extra step, one thing we're going to talk about is potentially sealing the foam with some CSM, one layer. If you really wanted to, you could. I think that's overkill and probably unnecessary, but you know, it's kind of one of those things that if you wanted to do that on your personal boat and perfection is what you're shooting for, then you certainly could do that. And again, it's not uncommon to have some voids. You wouldn't believe what I've seen when we work on factory produced boats. The problems, things that you might think is a problem, and these boats have been in service for 20 or 25 years, and sometimes the low quality workmanship can result in a problem, and other times it's just not that big of a deal. It may look unsightly or maybe bothersome to you. And again, that's one of the beautiful things about doing these kind of projects is this, if you want to spend the time and effort to do it. Now I'm going to circle back here. I want to show you one other little thing you're probably going to want to be mindful of when you're working on this foam is once it is fair and true, which this is, you want to be mindful of not letting your knees dent it or ding it or dig into it, or walking on your heels or wearing any kind of shoe that would bruise the foam. And sometimes you may have to come back and do a second or a third fill. Now, again, this is not absolutely necessary, folks. It's kind of one of those things. If you want to go the extra mile and fill up some of those little voids, if it makes you feel better, by all means, you can do that. We got a pretty big one up here. Now, you could also mix up. You could come back and mix up a little bit of foam and backfill some of these if needed. This boat is going to be so much stronger. If you saw the quality of workmanship under the floor on this boat, it was not very good. It was not very high. Now again, I don't know if I've mentioned already, I showed obviously the material we're using from Fiberglass Warehouse, and as always, you folks know they offer a very substantial FISHBUMPTV discount code, so be sure to take advantage of that, save you some money. And then all the materials, tools, supplies, power tools and whatnot, everything. We've got a super nice Amazon store, and we offer Patreon services for folks that need consulting or help with their own personal projects. Patreon is the way to reach out to me and maybe get some help with those things. You don't have to use Vinylester in all cases, but it is a superior product. It's going to be tougher. It's going to be better at sealing moisture, if moisture is what really worries you. And again, it seems like with the foam, man, that is a hot topic. A lot of people are absolutely convinced that foam under the floor of your boat is a bad idea, and that's just not the case. Not all foam is created equal. Fiberglass Warehouse offers a superior product, and then it has a lot to do with the care you take on the installation as far as putting your floor down, not allowing any water to get underneath the floor, making sure your fasteners are properly countersunk. And of course, if you've been following this build series, you know that we're going to be talking about that as we move forward. So we've already got the floor panels cut, but when we get into the installation side of things, we will talk about doing it in such a way that there is no way water and moisture can get underneath the floor. I'd love to hear what kind of projects you folks at home are working on. It's always interesting. Been seeing some really cool work on our Facebook group page. You guys out there are doing a great job, and I mentioned Patreon consulting earlier, but we do have Patreons of the channel that help support the work that we do here. And I want to send out a personal thank you to everybody that's been supporting the channel through Patreon. It is much appreciated. We couldn't do this without your support and help. And again, I keep talking about those little Coosa board ledgers, but when you're sanding and fairing, that absolutely helps when it comes to shaping and sanding this stuff, because otherwise you're like, well, man, am I doing a good job? Is this level? Have I sanded it enough? That's also where a nice straight edge can come in handy. This one's been around the shop forever, just a nice piece of aluminum 1/4 inch stock, and you can run that across your stringers, and you can use that as a gauge as you're sanding to know where you need to be. So I think that's looking pretty good there, folks. I think you kind of get the general idea. I don't need to show you the whole floor. Matter of fact, it's like 5 o'clock on a Friday. It's pretty late, so we are probably gonna have to wrap this thing up. But I hope y'all enjoyed that. We kind of got a panoramic here. I don't know, again, just to show you, we've got it all filled. We'll be doing the same next time y'all come back. We will be getting ready to potentially put a floor panel or two in, or we will be talking about a fuel tank. That was something for you folks that are actually working on projects. The way we install fuel tanks, I typically like to install a bulkhead just forward of it, which is what I did on, this is since last episode. So we put this piece in here since last episode, and we'll be putting some little blocks and getting ready to install a custom fuel cell. So this thing is moving right along. So I want to thank everybody so much for your time. Thank you for tuning in. It means a lot to me. It's Captain Joe here, Island Marine Charters, FISHBUMPTV. My son Logan working hard behind the scenes is my amazing cameraman. We'll catch you in the next episode.